Iran doesn't think that it lost the war with Israel. We know that. They have said they're determined to restart their nuclear program. And they have said that they are prepared to go to war with Israel once again, whatever the cost to them.
Yeah, it's more ridiculous Iranian bluster. Iran managed to deter, terrify, torment Israel for many, many decades, primarily through its proxies. And when it came to money time, it turned out to be a paper tiger, as I rather suspected it would turn out to be. I do want to say a couple of very, very quick things about Israel with regard to Iran now. If there is one change that has taken place within the entire defense establishment in the States of Israel, it's that where we see a problem or we see a danger, we act, we strike, and we remove that from the chessboard.
Which is, of course, what Israel failed to do with regard to Hezbollah and Hamas.
And Hamas.
With catastrophic results.
With catastrophic results. It's changed now. And so if China or Iran is banking on the idea that Israel will allow Iran to arm up and defend its skies against Israel's freedom over its skies, it would be making a catastrophic mistake. The other thing I want to say is just going back to Prime Minister Netanyahu's
So do you think Israel would go back to war with Iran?
I don't think that first of all, I don't think that it would necessarily be termed a war. I think that Israel has expressed very clearly that it retains the right to fly and operate over the skies of Iran and even on the ground in Iran, as we saw it was able to do, in the event that it feels that Iran is reconstituting its nuclear weapons program.
Are you worried about the level of control President Trump has over what happens in Israel now?
In what respect?
In terms of perhaps pushing for a ceasefire deal in Gaza, for example, do you think that he's taken the decision out of Israel's hands to a certain respect?
No.
Is Israel too dependent on the United States?
Well, I do think that Israel's too dependent on the United States militarily. But if I spoke about the change in Israel's doctrine at the defense establishment level to act where we see a threat, as opposed to allowing threats to grow, right behind that is Israel's determination to defend itself by itself as and when it feels is necessary. I think that's central to the Prime Minister's thinking and, incidentally, to his political rivals as well. I don't think that we're going to outsource our decision-making about Gaza, even to our best friends in the United States of America. But again, I just want to say, President Trump put forward a very clear idea and vision for the relocation of the Gazans out of the Gaza Strip. Israel should be leaping on that and pushing it forward and propelling it forward, because that is the only reasonable resolution to this quandary that is the Gaza Strip and the population therein.
OK, and Ariel, we know that President Trump has very close relations with the Saudis. The Saudi foreign minister has been meeting with his Iranian counterpart, Araghchi, in Mecca today. This, as Iran says, it is open to having nuclear talks with the United States, something that President Trump says he's also very interested in doing.
Yeah, look, Laura, the Saudis are hedging their bets. They have no love lost for the Iranians. We know that while publicly they condemned Israel's strikes on Iran during that 12-day operation, privately they celebrated it. Even sources close to the Saudi royal court told our channel those exact same things. They want to make sure that any agreement between the U.S. and Iran regarding the nuclear deal will not threaten them. That is one of the reasons why they decided to normalize relations with Iran, knowing that the U.S. isn't fully supporting and backing them in terms of their security needs. So they'd rather be closer to their enemy and keep an eye on them rather than just put all their bets on the U.S. to take responsibility for securing them. So these meetings often happen. I wouldn't read too much into it.
Sure. Do you think that they're also perhaps acting as a kind of an intermediary between the United States and Iran, given the strong relationship that President Trump and MBS enjoy?
Look, ultimately, we know that that role is saved for the Omanis. They're the main mediators right now. The Qataris are also saying that they're trying to mediate between the sides. I think the Saudis here, they're just trying to make sure that their security interests are met, that the escalation that was between Israel and Iran, they feared would spill over to them. It did not, and they just want to make sure that there are no potential threats emerging from Iran in the near to medium period future.
Yeah, it's interesting to go back to your original reporting about Syria and on the role of the UAE in all of that, because there is a sense, isn't there, that all of these countries in the region are really sitting and waiting for the war in Gaza to be wrapped up and done with so that they can move forward. They can normalise with Israel, they can focus on trade, they can focus on prosperity moving forward. There was an interview on American media with Lana Sebe, the Emirati envoy, very articulate vision that she had for how she sees the region moving forward. Is that something you think as well?
Yeah, look, ultimately the Emiratis, they established diplomatic relations with Israel prior to the Gaza war. If they hadn't done it, I don't think they would do it as long as this war is ongoing. That is what we're seeing right now with the Saudis. The Syrians don't have those same constraints, and so that's why we're seeing them moving forward. They're pretty much relieved of any internal pressure with regards to the Palestinian cause. That is not the case in the Gulf, specifically not in Saudi Arabia. And as long as the war in Gaza is ongoing, we can put any hopes of Israel-Saudi normalization up back in the shelf. But ultimately, the Sunni camp in the Gulf, they desperately want to see this war in Gaza to end so that they can restart relations with Israel, those who have established them, or restart talks for normalization, those who are still waiting in line.
I mean, it would be phenomenal, wouldn't it, if Israel was to have peace with Lebanon and Syria as a result of a war started by Hamas?
Peace would be wonderful. I don't think that peace is particularly what we're pursuing, and I think that everybody should cease from viewing normalization as this a sacred cow that it's become. The reality is that Israel had normalization with several states in the region prior to October 7th. Those normalization agreements have great virtue, but they're not designed to, nor did they stop terrorists from storming our borders and murdering, massacring, and taking hostage our people. Therefore, if the idea is that we must first somehow bring an end to our campaign to rid ourselves of this danger coming from the Gaza Strip in order to avoid distant normalization with the country in the great beyond, I think that is terribly misguided. And I will tell you something else. The Saudis don't really care about the Palestinian Arabs. If we were to see the Trump plan come to pass, wherein, as I said, the Palestinian Arabs were relocated out of the Gaza Strip, which, by the way, even if you support the Gazans, you should not want them there. It is uninhabitable. I say that from my experience serving there.
It's the only war zone in the world
war.
where people are not allowed to leave.
Absolutely right, where people are not allowed to leave, where we're told they uniquely want to remain in the immiserated conditions that they find themselves in as a consequence of their own leadership, incidentally. But if that can come about, you won't see the Saudis turn around and say, now that you've relocated the Palestinians, we absolutely won't normalise. They just want this issue to go away.
Another side to that, of course, is now that Iran is severely weakened, Ariel, that removes, doesn't it, one of the reasons, one of the motivations why the Gulf states wanted better relations with Israel in the first place?
I think if we look at one of the main outcomes of Israel's 12-day operation, it had significant military achievements against Iran. But I think diplomatically in the region, it sent a very strong message that Israel is not shying away from the bully of the region, as opposed to what we just talked about a few moments earlier, that the Saudis, they decided to normalize relations with Iran out of fear to try and dissuade them from attacking them via their proxies. So Israel is not shying away from going after the Iranians, and this sends a very strong message to its current and potential partners in the region. I heard one Israeli analyst say a few days ago that he hopes that up there, all the fallen leaders, the eliminated leaders of Iran's proxies are pounding on Sinwar for putting them in this situation where he tried to isolate Israel, but now we are seeing the exact opposite happening in terms of the current trajectory.
All right. Thank you both. Ariel Osseran, Benjamin Anthony.
Thank you.
Many thanks.